Oh, got it. Service.
Oh, Matthew Shepard, uh, new DMA choral conductor. Is that you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the reason I'm confused is that there's two Matt. I know another Matthew Shepard who's another conductor, so I have a different Matthew Shepard in my ear. Okay, great.
Great. Not exactly sure where I'm posting this right now. Let's just see. We're just checking. I
Can
know
I
it's a mess.
message also? I think I
Yes,
probably.
yes, because you're a host. You can type into the chat. Yes. Okay, we have some people signing in. Nice little group that's coming. Um, we're going to start this webinar in just a few minutes, probably not exactly at the time that we're scheduled to start, which is right now, but pretty close to that time. I think that should be uh, that's going to work for us. Um, 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 so so Don, you're gonna tell us all the secrets to being maybe not all the secrets. I mean, 12 ingredients is a lot. That's a very fancy, complicated dish. Um, but maybe it's not. Is it all the ingredients that you need?
It's all you need. You could do if whoever does these, all these 12, you're
Hmm.
ready to conduct the Berlin Philharmonic and have a great career and make a lot of money. All I
Wow.
got to do is these 12, and I'm happy to share them with you. So today is the answer.
Okay. Not knowing the 12 ingredients that you're going to talk about, I'm hoping, I'm optimistic that many of those ingredients can be found at ICWF conducting workshop.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I uh, Thor, you can't hear us. Everyone on the webinar is muted since it's a webinar. The only people that you ought to be able to hear are me and Don. You can't hear you. Can't hear people. Can't hear you.
Well, some
Um,
can. Ruth just says she can hear.
Ruth can hear. Hennock, can you hear? Is there anyone who cannot hear both me and Don? Okay,
Oh,
he can hear.
looks like
Okay,
it's.
Thor can hear now, and I apologize for the closed captioning. I am not typing these. There's a little person in my computer who works for Facebook who is typing these in, and he has a computer for a brain, so he misspells names. Okay, I think that we're all able to hear. So I guess I'll do a Don. I know that you don't need introduction for many people, but just to frame the conversation a bit, Don is an esteemed um, teacher of conducting, an esteemed conductor. Recently retired from University of Illinois and now working a bit at Rice University, and he's been on the faculty for the International Conducting Workshop and Festival for many years, many great years, and is going to be back this summer. And I asked Don to give everybody any topic that I thought would be an interesting teaser for the summer's workshop. And Don came up with the answer to all of our questions, what it takes to be a great conductor. And so uh, I'm going to leave it to Don. We'll have time for questions. If you have any questions, simply type them into the Q&A panel, and I'll do my best to get those answered for you. We are live streaming on Facebook, and we'll Don, take it away.
Okay, so welcome everyone. When Ben started his workshop initiative called ICWF, International Conducting Workshop and Festival, I believe Ben had in mind to primarily afford the opportunity to work with Gustav Meyer. Mr. Meyer was Ben's teacher and my teacher and Larry Ratcliffe's teacher. And he wasn't accessible enough to the masses. So Ben had this really delicious idea to make Mr. Meyer accessible. I found over the years that I became a little bit, at the outset of my relationship with Mr. Meyer, that I became a little bit of an interpreter or a translator for him on two levels. One is I decided that Mr. Meyer couldn't really relate to me as someone who knew nothing about conducting. And therefore, thinking that I was in a large pot of people who didn't really know anything about conducting but wanted to be a conductor, I thought, well, I've got to figure this guy out so in order to get something. So I clung to him outside of the workshop that he was doing for Ben. I was also Mr. Meyer's colleague at the University of Michigan. So I was a pretty lucky camper to be his colleague and learn to interpret his statements. In addition to that, his English wasn't so good. So we put those two things together and I sort of became his translator. Now let's segue many years forward. And really just a couple of months before Mr. Meyer passed away, 2016, I posited the question to him. Said, well, Gustav, what are the ingredients necessary to be a perfect conductor? Is it possible? And what does it entail? So he gave me this list. And I decided that if I would take his list and then kind of interpret them again, since that was my role in his life, that maybe we could help each other and all of us. So what I'm going to do is just read them down. Some of them I'll explain a tiny bit further, but most of them I'll just read and then you can ask questions about what he means. My recommendation to you all that are slightly less experienced than perhaps Ben or me or Larry Ratcliffe is that you think of the 12, think of each one at a time and say, which one am I weak at? And then work towards being stronger, whatever that it takes. So number one, and this is in no order, by the way, these could be random, interchangeable. They're all equally important. Number one is great musical depth with excellent technical conducting skills, clear yet free. So I'll just follow that up with a couple of Meyer-isms that I hope will have a long life. Quote unquote from Gustav Meyer, trust the orchestra. Quote unquote from Gustav Meyer, death to the beat. Relax your shoulders. Stay loose. and as I mentioned earlier, clear yet free. So this is a reason, number one, by coincidence, is a great reason to go to a conducting workshop in the summer in Ukraine with, so that we can discuss this one and hone in on it. Number two, an expert learned approach to all the instruments of the orchestra. So Mr. Meyer was a trumpet player and a pianist, and he was adamant that you have a friend on every instrument. So if you are a trombone player, maybe you don't need to have a trombone friend. But if you're a violinist, you need to have a trombone friend and a trumpet friend and a horn friend and a percussion friend and on down the line. And then you consult your friends over time with every single time you see or find a complex passage of some sort. The number three, great ears. Again, quote unquote, to Mr. Meyer, you must listen to the orchestra. It's kind of interesting that every time I mention to a younger conductor or to myself in my own brain to listen more to the orchestra, my beat gets smaller, or the student conductor's beat gets smaller because you tend to listen more. So perhaps moving less and hearing more. Number four, am I going too fast?
No.
Okay, am I going too slow?
No.
Okay. Number four, a genuine love of great music. So I think it's not that you can't love other kinds of music other than great music, but you really must love it. If you don't love it, maybe you're not in the right business, but you probably all check this box. I would hope, I would think that you love Brahms and you love Shakespeare and you love Debussy and you love Van Gogh and all of the greatest of the arts contributors of the planet. Number five, an egoless approach. This was a big one for Mr. Meyer. That is that the music and the composer comes before, and the musicians comes before self. Just by coincidence, I have my prop here of Mr. Meyer's book, and I want you to just enjoy the title and the sequence of which he puts it. First the score, then the orchestra, and at the bottom of the list, us. I think oftentimes conductors tend to make things more convenient for them, but we can never be in front of the composer or the musicians. An egoless approach, that's a big one. Number six, a respect for others as humans. Mr. Meyer used to say, everyone is first a person and then a musician. I interpret that as being in an orchestra rehearsal, for example, no one deliberately tries to make a mistake. I also suggest that it's important that you have a great deal of respect for what it is that other people know. Number seven, an omnipresent quest for learning. And the older I get, the more I realize that it's important to not be afraid of older people. This is all just listen more than you talk, ask a lot of questions. I think one of the things I love the most about these last 4 months of my life, of my career life, that is working with Larry Radcliffe and his constant search to learn more. I also might add that the time that I spent with Simon Rattle, I was impressed with that too. Constantly asking questions. Number 8, a vivid imagination. I think this works both obviously as a musician, trying to get to the soul of a phrase, but also as a music director. Mr. Myers started Halloween concerts that still exist at the University of Michigan. He invented a collage concert that still exists at the University of Michigan. Number 9, self-confidence. You got to have some kind of ego to get up on that box, right? And be in front of other people. I find as I teach conducting that the posture shows a lot about your confidence. And how do you come up with a lot of self-confidence? One is just musical preparation. How prepared are you for the rehearsal? Number 10, and this is one that is difficult, but perhaps you can work on it. A brilliant mind with a great memory. Number 11 is critical, and you're not going to like it because it says a tireless worker with limited personal distractions. So this is where I came up with the idea: if you've got a minute, learn a measure. And you could see Mr. Myers' tireless work ethic in that book that I just showed you. If you look, you can see how he would mark his score. I think as a teacher, if I take a look at your score, does it look like you're a tireless worker? And finally, number 12, great leadership skills to build rapport with musicians and all of the constituencies. And this one is also difficult, but leadership can be learned. It was one of the presidents of the United States was named Dwight Eisenhower, and he used to believe that leadership could be learned. You just study it. So if you don't have much experience, read a lot of books about leadership. So this one is maybe the easiest one in a way. You're friendly but not familiar. You can't get too close to any of the musicians. It's a kind of a lonely life that we lead up there. That's my list of 12. So we've got some time. I'm very happy to, or Ben and I, either one, very happy to entertain questions about the workshop or how this, or any of these points.
Yeah, it's a great list. It's simple on the surface, but of course each of those 12 ingredients has a lot of depth, and like you said, with number 11, you have to be a tireless worker. Each of these areas requires a lot of work, but also like you said, every one of these things is learnable, or you can improve on it. This is not something that you're either born with or you're not born with.
And if I might add, Ben, I want to be sure that you don't think that I can do all these 12.
Right, right, right,
Yeah, no way. Host, no way. Uh,
right,
but I
right.
do think, because if you go back to the beginning of it, why I asked Mr. Meyer, what makes all 12? I think he was, and there's maybe a few here and there on the planet that are, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah. So we do have two questions. Thor just asked, could you identify two or three of the most common shortcomings of a really talented conductor who has tons of confidence? Why don't we start with that, and then we'll get to Mitchell's question.
I would say really talented conductor with tons of confidence, shortcoming, over conducting, uh, beating, not trusting the orchestra, beating too heavy, taking control of everything too much so. Conducting is this matter of when are we needed, when are we not. So I would say that's the biggest one, Thor.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that. Um, can you show the book again? Yes, and I do think that the book is linked on the website. I'll make sure that it is linked. Let me just see. Yes, it is linked on the website, just so everybody can see it. I don't have a linked, oh no, I do have a linked order. I think you can still get it at Oxford University Press or
Oh,
Barnes& Noble.
geez. Can I answer a question that just came in? Oh, no, wait,
Yeah,
we should take them in order because uh,
right.
Mitchell had a question, but I do want to self-promote. I want to show you this other book as long
Yeah,
as uh, this is a book by Elizabeth Green. You don't have to get this book. I just want to show off. This is my hand. Uh,
oh, well,
this is my modeling job as a conductor. And I just I just show you that so I can show off a little bit. That's all.
that,
It's my
Don,
ego. It's my ego.
Don,
What
I
was
didn't
Mitchell's
realize,
question?
well, Don, I just have to say, I didn't realize that you were a hand model earlier in your career.
Yeah,
Um, I'll
yeah,
make sure to add that into your bio.
please.
Mitchell's question is, what methods do you use to improve your ear?
You know, Mitchell, come to the workshop this summer sometime and ask that question to Larry Ratcliffe. He's got a system that he did for himself about 30 years ago, and it was daily drills.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to leave it at that. You've got to get that one from Larry. He's the expert um, ear, but I can submit to you that
Yeah,
there is a difference between hearing the orchestra and really hearing what they're doing.
yeah.
And one of the exercises you can do if you do lucky enough to have an orchestra is to use approach the orchestra with like you've got little dials. So you turn for a while, turn down the string dial and turn up the brass dial in
Mhm.
your ear,
Mhm.
psychologically that is, and that helps you a little bit. I see the question here of does the overconducting guide apply to youth high school orchestras? Absolutely. I am a big believer, as was Mr. Meyer, that you conduct the music and not the ensemble.
Mhm.
So if you're going to conduct the Berlin Philharmonic or the Shepherd School Orchestra at Rice University or the Timbuktu Junior High School Orchestra, if you're conducting the same piece, you conduct the same way. You don't let those little people shape your conducting.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Any other questions? Feel free to type them into any of our chat fields. Anybody on Facebook, if they want to pipe in and ask a question. I am watching on Facebook. I can see your comments, at least the ones that are posted on the conducting workshop page. But we are looking forward to this summer. Um, Applications, the first application deadline is tomorrow, although I'm considering extending it. I know I just got back from the International Conductors Guild conference and was chatting to a number of people, and some of the concerns about COVID or the conflict in Ukraine might just take a couple of weeks to have a either resolve or to have a better sense of where they're going. I mean, we're pretty confident that that this Omicron variant is going to taper out. We can already see it starting to happen in New York and New Jersey, and hopefully, with a little bit of time, we'll see the trajectory, and also that'll give our governments a bit of time to try to negotiate some end to a conflict. We do have to keep in mind that Lviv, where we have the workshop, is all the way over in the western side of the country, and most of the conflict in Ukraine is all the way on the other side. It's about a 16 and a half hour drive away. So the people in Lviv are not particularly concerned about any risk to their own persons, but obviously from where we are right now, we read a lot of reports. So hopefully that'll calm down.
I have a question, Ben, about leadership.
Mhm.
I think the easiest, and I don't mean easy in terms of, it's just the most accessible. John
Mhm.
C. Maxwell,
Mhm.
The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Mhm.
He just has, I think he's a religious person, I believe a pastor of some sort.
Mhm.
But he's got a way of condensing it in such a simplistic way that even a conductor can understand it.
Right. Right. Yeah, there are some books about leadership from the podium, but I've also found that by studying great leaders to see what they do, um, there's a lot of talk of emotional intelligence, understanding that. I'm actually I'm just finishing up a fascinating book on negotiations called Never Split the Difference, but it really is about leadership and it's about listening and creating communication and dialogue, and trying, in negotiating to get what you want. And it's a fascinating book. The guy who wrote it was a negotiator for the FBI, and now he teaches negotiations. So it's interesting. Um, let's see, other questions that we have. Can you discuss chamber music and its relationship to conducting?
Uh, yes, and I see another one about from Justin about imagination. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I think orchestra is big chamber music. So chamber music fits into the category of trust the orchestra. And by that, I mean primarily by gesture. So if you give an upbeat uh, to a musician or a section of musicians, I think it's important you go up with the idea that, of course, they're going to come in uh, and not, oh my gosh, uh, I don't think they're going to come in, or worse yet, you idiots better come in. Uh, so I think it's the attitude of just conduct the sound and share in the sound rather than uh, being demonstrative about it. I think orchestra is big chamber music, and it's our job to conduct good listening.
Hmm.
How do you work on imagination of shaping a phrase differently? I'm going to let Ben answer that because he's a really great pianist.
Well, I mean, I think that chamber music is almost like a small scale version of what you need to do as a conductor. Ideally, as a conductor, it's not just about telling everybody what to do, but you listen and you follow, and sometimes you show, and sometimes you go along, but you try to create an atmosphere of working together. Um, you know,
Uh, Ben, how do you work on imagination of shaping a phrase differently?
that's a that's a hard question. You know, I think you it helps to have great teachers who can share their wisdom with you. I think it helps to know the music very well, know all the aspects of how it's built, and I think that there are techniques of uh, creating subtext or imagining subtext, which helps build layers of meaning. But ultimately, I think we have to ask, why did the composer write this music? What is the composer saying? What is the composer trying to achieve? And if we can answer that question, obviously we can't answer the question. We have to make up an answer, and that's part of the creativity. Um, uh, so, from the mind standpoint, I feel like that's where we have to start. From a technical side, we have to experiment, whether it's on our instrument or through our voice, even in our mind. Listen to other performances to hear what other people do. I think these are some of the ways. Don, what do you think?
Yeah, Miss Elizabeth Green, the author of this blue book that I showed you in my modeling job, used to pass uh, little pens out to us, and unfortunately, I don't have any. Maybe some of you do, but she on the pen it said, "Know your score, uh, use your imagination, and get out to the tip of the stick." And that's what she passed out to all of us. But I think the imagination emanates primarily from your knowledge of the composer and the characteristics of the composer and your study, preparation, the time when you use your musicology hat and your empathy for the composer. Any other questions? We're at the
Um,
time here, Ben. It's 6 o'clock. I don't want to hold
oh,
anybody past.
we can, yeah. I mean, we can go a couple of minutes long. I think Matthew had asked, do you have a way to instill in the orchestra a responsibility to listen and play as intensely as they would in a chamber music group?
Do you have a way to instill? Okay. Uh, yeah, beat smaller.
Yeah.
Conduct good listening. Uh, this again was a Myerism. He was a genius of the small Zen-like beats that
Hmm.
just conducted and shaped the music and didn't take ownership um, for precision. Um,
Hmm.
so if you just imagine conducting a beat that's very small, then they have no choice but to listen. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can be awkward, and sometimes you have to trust, I
Hmm.
think. And again, but this is one thing that's hard to generalize about, sir, um, and would be best um, investigated in a one-on-one situation with an orchestra and with a
Right.
piece.
Right. I think from what I've seen at the workshop, I don't really have an answer to this. I wouldn't say that I have enough experience, but I do think that to get the orchestra to play with the intensity you do in chamber music, you have to model it yourself as a conductor, and you have to create that culture of listening and participation. And I say this because after every workshop, the orchestra, many people in the orchestra come up to me and tell me that through the atmosphere and the environment in the workshop, they their culture changes and they do start listening better and they find that they improve and play in this way that you're asking about. I think that uh, Don and Larry and the teachers that have come in to the workshop do support this idea, and through their modeling and their listening and the way they collaborate with the students and with the orchestra, you'll see, maybe not explicitly, but I think that you'll see how it works, how it happens. As Don mentioned, we probably ought to wrap it up. Was meant to be partially a teaser. I think it's a great list. It's certainly a very helpful framework for all of us to have put up on our bathroom mirror and on our piano and in our violin case or wherever it is that you practice, maybe on your computer next to YouTube. I'm not sure. Um, I want to mention two things before we a couple, actually three things. If you have any questions, send an email, post a comment on Facebook, because I will post it there, and I'll do my best to answer it. The second thing is um, the uh, first deadline for the workshop is Monday. We will still be taking applications after that, but it's better to get it in sooner. And the third thing is, I mentioned that I was at the International Conductors Guild conference and talking to a lot of people, um, listening to presentations. It seems that one of the biggest barriers that the younger conductors or conductors earlier in their career had to advancing in their careers that they just didn't have good video. And I have to tell you, we get great video at this workshop because through the workshop, you are learning this music really well. You're getting guidance from great teachers. You're working with a professional orchestra, and we have the technical uh, materials, the camera, the microphones, the facility, the concert hall to record it very well. And you have the rights to use the video as much as you want. This is very rare. And if you feel that you have all the video material that you need, maybe you don't need the workshop for that reason. But if your answer to the question, do you have good video? If your answer is no, you really should consider coming to this workshop, even just for that reason. But then if you add on top of it that you're working with master teachers in a professional orchestra in a charming city with incredible colleagues, you will likely have the same experience that the other 420 conductors have had over the last 21 years, many of whom, including one of Don's students, Gonzalo Farias, goes on to really nice opportunities. Congratulations, Don, on Gonzalo's success. I mean, you, you do deserve at least some credit for it. Gonzalo, of course, is extremely talented, has worked hard, and is rising through the ranks, and it's great to see him doing so well. But we know that it's a product of what you've taught him to a large degree. So, I would really encourage everyone who doesn't have video to consider, anyone who uh, wants to work with inspiring teachers on incredibly timeless masterpieces with a professional orchestra. I hope you look into this workshop because it will be a great experience. Don, you have anything else to add?
No, I don't. I wish you all the very best. I can say if you have any further questions about this list after you've digested it a bit, you can send me an email directly too. I'm happy to chat.
Great. That's great. Well, thanks so much for coming. Thank you to all the attendees. I see people are just still here and people are on Facebook. And like I said, feel free to reach out. I'll put a link to our website in the comment page, and hope we can do more of these. Oh, before we leave, I have a very quick poll, 3-question poll. I'm launching it right now. Please answer it if you can. Super easy. Just gives me a sense of how everybody's feeling about the workshop and about the webinar and I don't know, life in general. So thank you all for coming. People are answering 3 questions, 5 people. It only takes 5 seconds. I will hopefully be in touch with everybody soon. Thanks a lot,
Thank you
Don.
all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.